welcome back. Today I want to talk about the lawnmower. There's obviously a lot of lawnmowers out there, a lot of options. Specifically, I wanted to talk about mine, the Toro series. It's the Missouri Master series. It's got the Kawasaki, what is this? The FX801V engine. It's a pretty great lawnmower. Now, what I like about it is it's incredibly efficient. Like our horse lot. I mow things with this thing that most farmers around here think I'm crazy for mowing. I shouldn't be using it for this. Well, maybe I shouldn't, but I do. And this is why. So I'm out here in our north horse lot. It'll take me about 2.5 hours to brush hog this with our tractor and brush hog. And it does a fine job. With this riding lawnmower, it takes me about 2.5, 3 hours to mow the whole thing with the riding lawnmower. It's a little bit faster, a little bit more get around things. It's easier to get around obstacles on the riding lawnmower than it is the tractor and brush hog. Tractor and brush hog has just a little bit wider path that it cuts. This deck, it's pretty wide for a riding lawnmower, but it's just a little shorter than my 7-foot brush hog. But this is faster than the tractor. I can get in places so I can cut time here and there. Now, the other reason I like it is it's so much lower to the ground than a tractor and brush hog. So it's easier to get under tree branches. But what's even more important than that is with it being so close to the ground, I'm able to see things before I run them over that I don't with the tractor and brush hog. Now, I'm also talking about we're mowing before the grass is 3 feet tall. I can actually see the ground. Now, what this means for me is I have found posts with 4 or 5 feet of barbed wire still attached to them, just laying in the ground. And I brush hogged over it 3 or 4 times before I found it. And I find it with this. I've found other just strands of barbed wire coiled up, just laying out here in this lot. Now, we've only had this property 5 years. So this was stuff that's pre-fence. And we've walked this lot a couple of times. But even walking it, you can miss things. And what I've found is mowing it with a riding lawnmower, you see every inch of your property and you find, are there holes, are there tripping hazards, are there cut hazards, is there a piece of rebar sticking out of the ground just this far that's just enough to hurt a horse, hurt a cow, goat, whatever the case may be. So that is one of the big reasons why I like mowing my horse lot with the riding lawnmower. Now, I'm not actually trying to mow the grass, and that's what I like about these zero turns, is they have a wide range of heights. It goes anywhere from 1 to 5.5 inches is what the little dials say. And so you can tune it in. You can get a pretty precise cut with it. Now, when I'm mowing my yard, I have it set to 3 inches. When I'm out here, I set it to 4.5-ish, somewhere in that ballpark. I've noticed if you max it out and you go over your tall weeds, it doesn't truly cut the weeds well. It kind of just mars them up. Somewhere around that 4.5 range seems to be about the sweet spot of it cuts the weeds but leaves the bulk of the grass. And that's what I want, because I got horses out here. I want them to eat the grass, but they're not eating the weeds. So here's kind of your dilemma. If you leave the weeds, then you have 2 options. You can spray them, or you can do what I try to do, is I try to get out here before they go to seed and mow them. And after a couple of years, your weed problem starts to diminish. If you can actually either brush hog or mow your lots before weeds go to seed, eventually you're going to kill off the weeds. Now, you could throw cattle or goats or things like that in here too, because horses will eat certain types of grass. They don't eat the weeds. Cattle will eat certain weeds and grass, but not all. Goats will eat some weeds and some grass, but not all. So if you can find that right combination for your property, your grass, your weeds, to where if you're rotating the right animals around, or you just have them all on the lot, everybody's eating their own little thing, that might be the fix for you. But we just have horses and llamas. That's all we have on the property at the moment. We're looking at some cattle, and we're talking about sheep. We've talked about goats. We've ran goats on the property before. We don't we weren't really too happy with the goats. We had a lot of issues with the goats. So goats are good, goats are bad. I see pros and cons to both. I think our next step is we're going to try sheep later down the road. But yeah, so those are kind of some things to keep in mind. You don't want to be running over the logs. You don't want to be running over sticks. You don't want to run over rocks. So that's kind of the downside to this versus a brush hog, is when you do see an obstacle, you actually do have to get off and remove that obstacle. Now what I tend to do is I'll just throw the big rocks or the barbed wire or whatever just right here down by my feet. And I'll continue along until I get close to a gate, and then I'll just pitch it over the gate. And at the end of the day, if it's a big pile, I'll just come back with the truck and haul it off. If it's a small pile, just throw it back on the lawnmower and pack it back to the house, throw it in the dumpster. So those are some things to keep in mind. But if you're looking at upgrading a lawnmower, you're looking at getting a new lawnmower, I highly recommend looking at the Toro. This is a pretty moderate machine that checks a lot of boxes. It's not the greatest machine out there, but it is far from the worst machine out there. This is a great middle ground machine. If you're wanting to start your own lawn care company, this specific model will probably be about the one you want. This is a 3000 series. It's the Toro 3000 Z Master. So, but I know it's filthy. It's absolutely gross, but I use this a lot. I mow this around our pond with it. I mow the backside of the dam with it. I mow as much as I can along our road. I mow our yard with it. I mow the small horse lots and small llama lots with it. And I mow the north horse lot with it. This thing gets a lot of hours on it every year. Now, again, if you're mowing animal lots, keep in mind, this is their food source. I don't want to mow the grass down to nothing, but I need to knock the weeds down, because that's kind of what I've noticed over the last 5 years, is when the weeds get up, the animals don't necessarily get to the grass underneath the weeds, and the grass underneath the weeds kind of start getting choked out. So by knocking off the top of the weeds, it kills the weeds and allows the grass to come back more. I've also have heard and seen, just in practice, the more you cut, not necessarily the more you cut, but when you actually mow your grass, what you're kind of doing is you're quasi-naturally fertilizing the ground, because what you mow is going to break down into compost. So by mowing the grass, it tends to rebound better if you mow something 3-4 times a summer or more. So just food for thought, things to keep in mind. Yeah, let's get back to work. Let's actually do something. Well, it took me about 4 hours over the course of yesterday and today to knock all these weeds down. Oh, now what I also did is I did this in a time where we are calling for rain over the next 3 days. So my hope is I mowed all the weeds down. so hopefully they're not going to go to seed, or some of them did, but hopefully not all of them. Definitely knocked the cockaburs down, and those are the ones that cause us the biggest headache. And they haven't gone to seed yet, so that's really what we're going for. And then my hope is now we'll get some rain over the next couple days and the grass will start to sprout back up. So, and if I can do this, if I can actually do it 2, 3, 4 times a year, then that tends to make the ground a lot better. It'll put the grass clippings in a position where they'll decompose, actually add some nutrition back to the soil. It prevents the weeds from actually taking over. I'm also noticed a lot of these spots around here, the weeds were just so big that once I mowed it, you could actually see a bunch of tiny little grass trying to come up. It was just starving for light. So by knocking the big weeds down, hopefully the grass will actually be able to take off and get bigger. I just kind of wanted to give you an idea of what I do to maintain our horse lot. Yes, sometimes I come out here with the tractor and brush hog. Sometimes I do it with the riding lawnmower. It surprisingly takes me about the same time. It did take me a little bit longer on the riding lawnmower because I let the grass and weeds get a little taller than what the riding lawnmower should be used for, but it still handled it. It wasn't too bad on the machine. It worked just fine. Be smart about your property. Yeah, do what you think is right, and I think that's about all I got for you today. So good luck to you on your projects. I'm Ben with MD Triple Creek. Bye.